We're talking with Pat Grant, immediate past chairman, Western Stock Show Association vice chair, Capital Campaign. Pat, how nice to see you.
Well, it's great to see you, Ed. It's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you. That's nice of you to say. Now, you know, I've had the good fortune of interviewing you many times, certainly, and I know what a long and celebrated history that you've had with the National Western. Now, for those who might be watching and are not quite sure of your history, could you talk a little bit about the roles you've played with the National Western?
Well, I was approached in the mid-'80s to join the executive committee, which is the predecessor of the now existing board of directors of the association. And I was in the legislature at the time, and the then leadership thought we need this guy Grant to help us out on a few of our issues. So I helped him on a capital campaign, and they then asked me to become chief executive officer and president in 1990. And I served until 2010. And after that, I thought it was important not only for me, my health was declining and probably a function of stress. And so I stepped down, and I also thought we needed new fresh blood, new fresh ideas, new leadership to step in. I didn't want to hang on by my fingernails, as they say.
Sure.
And so I stepped aside. I became chair of the long-range planning.
Right.
And then I became vice chair, and then became chairman in 2016 and stepped down in 2019.
When they first asked you back in 1990, were you all in 100%, or were you kind of like, I don't know, or how do you feel about this? Did you have a vision for what they were asking you to do?
Well, at the time, if I can be candid,
Sure.
I was in the legislature, and I had a lot of people encourage me to run for mayor of Denver and governor of Colorado, and I thought, you know, I'm really not functioning in a way that I want to be mayor. But I thought about governor, and I traveled the state at the time, and for various reasons I did not formally declare. And the then chairman of the board, Nick Petrie, said, Pat, take your time, come and head stock show, lead stock show, and we'll get you elected later. So that was really the beginning of my pursuit of National Western and trying to help this wonderful organization out.
Right. So you saw that they needed some help, and you thought you could help the vision.
They did need help. In the late 80s, in many respects, stock show was in trouble.
Yeah.
And the state and city closed down parts of stock show in 1988. And the leadership said, that's unacceptable. We got to improve and strengthen our facilities. So we did that capital campaign and won that capital campaign. And that was really the drive to start me focusing upon how can I be of benefit? How can I help this organization along?
Right. And if I may say so, a benefit indeed.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, I think that's pretty foregone. This video that we're shooting is called Stock Show Icons. Now, that's why you're here. Now, if you're like a lot of the others we've talked to, it's like, no, don't call me an icon. I'm not an icon. But just for the sake of argument, just give me that credit of saying, yes, you are an icon. What would you be considered the best efforts that you've had, your most favorite thing that you've done for the stock show?
Yeah, that's really hard for me to do. I was raised not to talk about myself and not to brag.
Right.
And so what I'd like to do is give you 2 or 3 highlights of my career with stock show. But any one of these highlights that I will identify for you were a function of a team effort.
Sure.
I was one part of a team, and we had superb, outstanding, dedicated, passionate, very competent people helping along. But I think when I took over, Financially, we were struggling. In many respects, we were not able to pay bills. And when you're not able to pay bills and pay personnel, you're just shy of a very difficult decision.
Sure.
And we struggled, and I struggled to develop a plan and was able to develop a plan, and we pulled ourselves out of this deep hole and strengthened our situation. That was one. Number two was clearly the new construction of the event center where the horse shows are held, the stadium hall, which wraps around the old 1909 stadium, and the expo hall, of which and on which we're sitting on the third floor, was a function and outcome of that 1989 bond issue, and that was really important. I think in the early 2000 period of time was when we really started developing new events, new activities, new plans to make sure we could fill all of the new facilities we were building. And we had to show the city and county of Denver and our supporters and our advocates and our sponsors that we were up to that task. And because of outstanding people, and some have been identified as icons.
Right.
Chuck Sylvester clearly is one of those icons. He was a very important part of that growth. And then finally, I would say, even with that 1989 bond issue on which we were successful, it was clear to me long-term our viability and our feasibility as an existing organization and nonprofit organization would be under serious stress. We were not able to fund preventive maintenance in a way we should have because we did not have the cash nor the resources to do so. And so I really hope to inspire and bring the board and Stock Show along in laying a foundation for a new vision of Stock Show. And so those are a few highlights of which I'm proud to have been a part of.
Exactly, and important highlights. Yeah, you know I've been in Denver a long time, and I remember the Stock Show in those days, and it is now really one of the crown jewels. I think you have that to be proud of. And now as we fast forward, let's talk a little bit about the new National Western Center. Tell us a little bit what we can expect.
Well, we can expect a much greater awareness, I think, not only nationally but globally on being the epicenter of agriculture and agriculture-related functions and activities year-round. And I think that's a huge statement of support for the mayor of Denver, for the city and county of Denver, but it's also a statement of recognition that this is really a crown jewel around which we can build really an educational function that's married to this agriculture, and that education is so tied to CSUs. So we will see many more and bigger horse shows. We will see more livestock shows. We will see a rodeo that, in my opinion, has always been the best, but it's not the biggest. But really, to be competitive in this rodeo world, we've got to elevate our prize money so we attract, and we'll always attract these cowboys who want to make the money, big money, to come to Denver. The only way to do that is we need a new coliseum and a new arena.
Right, and that's what we're getting.
And that's what we're getting.
Well, certainly it seems like the National Western is helping to define the new West, what it means to be a Westerner. What do you think yourself? What does it mean to be a Westerner?
You know, that really is a core question, Ed, for which I applaud you in asking. I think all of us who are in the West, we need to sort of step back and ask ourselves that very question. And to me, what it means is more of an appreciation of open space, of land, of the dirt and the soil from which we grow crops to feed the world. But it's also a statement of our character and our traits that are so important to maintain. And those traits are courage, a willingness to take on hard issues. I think that's characteristic of Westerners. I think it's a sense of independence where we are not bound by what others are thinking or what the herd thinks. We need to do what's right and best for our community and who we are, and not just be led down a path, not just be led down a primrose path. It's a matter of honor. Your word is your bond. When you look somebody in the eye and say, I agree and I understand, that is your bond, that is your commitment, that is your statement. You will fulfill that commitment. And that's all part of being a Westerner.
I love your definition of being a Westerner, I really do. Now, I know that you and your wife, Carla, and she's been right by your side, an integral part of this all along. You have a good-sized group of grandchildren. How many do you have now?
We have 6 grandchildren.
And 6 grandchildren. 6. Good for you. And they all love the stock show, certainly, as your kids do. What do you hope all this new that is coming here will mean to them? What do you hope the effect it'll have on the kids?
Well, I would hope that they would begin to understand their heritage, their family heritage, the Grant family heritage in Colorado and in the West. And I've been a fortunate member of this family that is so good. And they hopefully will appreciate family and the importance of family in the West. And I would hope that they would develop these very values of being a Westerner about which you and I are speaking,
right.
You know?
Sure.
Come out and enjoy the open space, enjoy the beauties of nature, but come out and enjoy what it means to be a Westerner and how the West was created and how it became a critical part of this whole part of the Western United States. And I would hope, obviously, that at the end of the day, they'd come and support and love Stock Show.
Right. Still meaningful to these future generations.
For sure.
Got to have that. Let me ask you something. How ready are you for the Stock Show 2022?
I think I'm as ready as I can be, but it's tough.
Sure.
It's really tough. But you know, when times are tough and we're facing what we're facing in this COVID-19, that's when you got to sort of dig deep down into your soul and figure out how do we deal with it? How do we confront it? How do we make the most of what we have? And I think I give huge credit to the leadership team, to Pete and Doug and Paul and Angela for creating a really exciting January show that's going to be virtual. It's new, but it's very creative, and I think it's outstanding.
That's right. We do what we can do, and I think you've done it well, so we're looking forward to that, certainly.
They have done it well.
Right. Pat Grant, immediate past chairman, Western Stock Show, thanks so much for all you've done. Thank you for that, and thanks for being here.
Well, my pleasure.